Join me for a productive morning as I go about working on some household tasks. I'm hoping that you will be able to use this video for body doubling, to get some work done, or just enjoy it for what it is. This video is going to be longer than my usual, but I'm working on learning some new skills in my editing software, including this nifty voiceover, as well as manipulating video speed to speed up the process of my real-time work and incorporate music, and all the while figuring out how to film myself going about my day. I want to thank you for being patient and supportive as I'm learning this as I go, and I want to be upfront about that. So my goal for this day was to go for a run first thing in the morning, then make fresh roasted tomato soup to freeze for the winter. I used up what was likely the last of my tomatoes for the summer. I also wanted to make banana bread using up several overripe bananas, get laundry back under control, as well as dishes and simple tasks I had been avoiding over the last little while. So I started the day by attempting to go for a run, but only made it about a half mile before stopping to walk. I have been struggling to get back into a good rhythm with running, but moving my body even just for a walk helps me so much. Here you can see I've sped up the video, but I'm getting myself organized a bit by getting the dishes together, but my focus was to get the tomatoes prepped and into the oven to roast. One of those passive tasks. Once it's done, it can do the work in the oven while I go about finishing the task of dishes. I had another creator's video on the TV, and later I had some just music on another YouTube channel playing. Another reason why I'm doing the voiceover, and I might try to add in music as I can throughout, is so I don't get a copyright notice. But also with speeding the videos, everything was really high-pitched, squeaky sounding, and it just was awful to try to listen to it. So instead, you get to listen to the sound of my voice, and hopefully I can add in some copyright-free music throughout, but we'll see where that ends up. And then the video I recorded was so long here, the process of me preparing the tomatoes to put them in the oven, that when I went to upload it, it was like, I think I tried to upload too many clips all at once, and there was a catastrophic failure. And in this video, it actually cut off me finishing the prepping. So you get to where I am going to start cutting up an onion to add to the tomatoes, and it just cuts a whole like good 10 minutes off the video. Don't know why that is, but I didn't realize it until after I had finished the upload and then deleted the footage off of my phone. So that was fun to find that, but so you missed out on me cutting the onion, see how I seasoned the tomatoes, and putting it in the oven. But then throughout the morning, and almost any time that I know I'm going to be working quite a bit in the kitchen, I like to have warm soapy water in the sink to help me keep on top of dishes and to keep my hands clean as I go about working, especially when I'm working with food. It just makes it easy to wash my hands and feel like get anything off of them. And I found that keeping the dishes clean and mostly put away just helps me feel like the kitchen is ready and under control, and that it's ready for me to work in. And a big thing is like when like I mentioned, the passive task of once the tomatoes were in the oven roasting, then I had time here to catch up on the dishes, but then just it helps me stay on top of them as I go about being in the kitchen for a long period of time. I know that I struggled the first few years of being an adult with keeping up with the dishes, and especially before becoming a parent, the dishes really weren't a big deal. But now I have a good daily, nightly routine. Like my brain does not like to have dirty dishes in my sink or on my counters. I cannot process that. It's very hard for me to do that. It's just one of those things that you will find your rhythm as you get more and more into managing your household. It's finding the things that work for you, the schedules, routines. Some people can literally go 2 days and not have a problem with the dishes becoming too much for them to handle. But I just know for my family and the way we operate, I like having less. So that means we have to wash the dishes more Here I'm just like finishing up a few things, getting my water bottle washed. It's been a few days, and then there's just things that had been left out on the counter that needed to get put away. My goal for one of the things I like is having a cleared off countertop as much as I possibly can. And sometimes it's just things happen. We've had sickness enter the house, and so right now it was just we had some cold medicine out, and it's getting finding a home for that. Um, Getting things just ready to continue working as the day goes. Another Friday task that is routine for me is washing our towels. So those in my family that use washcloths, they use a fresh washcloth for every shower or bath. So making sure we get those washed regularly is super, super important. I like to add a little vinegar when I do my towels. It just helps with the odor. Um, there's there's always little things that you have to have routine in your household. For me, I used to do towels on Sundays, especially like during COVID when we weren't going out on Sundays. Sundays became the easiest day to get the towels washed. But now that we're older and we have more things going on, if I can, I prefer my towels to be washed on Friday mornings because it does take a little bit longer for them to dry. Uh, and we have two bathrooms plus kitchen. So I can fit everything into one load, and it makes it easy on myself to know that this is non-negotiable, has to be done. It kind of throws off for me the cleanliness of the towels if I don't get it done on Fridays, but that is a part of how things happen. I was also feeling a lot more motivated on this day to get things accomplished that I had been putting off for a while, like the tomatoes, like the banana bread. Um, for me, I've started seeing Fridays as a reset day. It helps that getting ready for the crazy weekends. We've been having so much to do on Saturdays with sports and games and meets. So I've seen Fridays the last few weeks as like my catch up day. Instead of Sunday, um, for me, the catch up day is Friday. Here, just, halfway through the tomatoes, I needed to stir them a little bit, make sure that things weren't getting crusted or too burnt on the top. My kitchen is small, but it functions well for me, and I just really appreciate having a well laid out kitchen. I'm always fiddling with things and putting things in different places and trying to make a tiny adjustments to see if it works better for me overall. I felt a little all over the place when trying to figure out which banana bread recipe I wanted to use, and the timing of everything started to get away from me for a bit. I was, you know, still trying to prepare to get the tomatoes made into soup, but I also wanted to get on top of sorting out the banana bread. So I was kind of doing things at the same time, and sometimes my brain just, I feel like it glitches, and it's like no matter how many times I've done something or have worked uh, on preparing things, my brain just takes a minute to remember where things are or to like know how I want to use them. As I was waiting for the tomatoes to finish up in the oven, I decided that I would gather up as many of the ingredients I could for the banana bread. That would make it better before switching back to finishing up the soup, just knowing I had everything ready to go. And I was struggling because I had two in this recipe book. There was two different banana breads, and I kept going back and forth because like my brain, like they looked identical for the ingredients and for the process, except for when I finally like really stared at it. One of them needed sour milk, and I was not about to do sour milk on this day. That would have taken more time, so I just really wanted to get everything going. And I had ambitions to do something with my sourdough starter, and I think I'd already realized, I should have realized it was already too late. When I'm working with flour, I've learned over the years that for me, one of my favorite things to do is if it's, a recipe calls for flour and baking soda and salt, I like to add the baking soda and salt to the flour and mix it together and kind of fluff it a little bit. It just helps with integration. One of my absolute favorite meals in the winter is grilled cheese with tomato soup. And I found a really nice homemade, like fresh tomato soup last fall at the end of the season, and I made it and did not have enough tomatoes left, like enough of the soup left to have it when I decided it just sounded so good to me in January or February, and I just had been dreaming about that tomato soup since then. And so this day I had some tomatoes in from my garden, and I really just wanted to make sure that I got some more of that soup put away this year for the winter. Um, it is just such a comfort meal, something so cozy, so filling, and just hearty to me when you're just looking for the comforts, especially on a cold, cold winter day. One thing I learned from the last time I made this is that I needed to use a sieve to try to get out some of the woody pieces, some of the skin from the tomatoes, um, any of those little things that just make it not as enjoyable to eat when it's super, super fresh. So while this simmers on the stove, I worked on getting the blender and the dishes cleaned up before getting the soup ladled into my super cubes. Um, but also like moving on to the banana bread, just trying to keep on top of it. I could totally work in a kitchen if I didn't have to do the dishes. If dishes could be eliminated, that would be a great thing for me. But it is a fact of doing cooking and being a part of it. Um, so just trying to keep on top of the dishes before I move on to the banana bread here. I just really enjoyed the process of this. So one of my most favorite things that I purchased over the last year has been my super cubes. I'm not sponsored. These are just, I saw them and I'm like, oh, that looks like it would be super, super easy. They're just silicone molds, but they have measurements for 1 cup, 2 cups. And this is the 1 cup. And I have just been using these so much. So I was able to get about close to 3 cups of soup made out of this. So that's 3 servings for this winter. And I'm super, super excited for that. So if you have not tried super cubes or a generic version of them, please feel free. This is our little drink fridge that we have, and I like to use that freezer of it for things that I know need to lay flat. And again, laundry is a constant part of running a household. There's always laundry to be done. I generally like to have a load a day, but not always. It just depends. And there are some days where I'm doing 3 or 4 loads of laundry. It just depends on the season and what we have going on. We're doing a lot more laundry these days simply because of sports schedules and working out. We just got to stay on top of that. You got to be clean. But I figured while I was in the basement putting the super cubes away into the freezer, I should switch the towels over to the dryer, forgetting that I had already had a load of laundry in the dryer, so I needed to switch that over. But I have always found laundry to be one of the easier tasks for me to keep up with. Again, not when I was first married, not when I was first becoming an adult, but as the years have gone, laundry has become one of the things that I look forward to. I don't mind doing it as long as I have stayed on top of it. Uh, it's we've just found a rhythm that works for us. There's seasons where I'm really good, and then other seasons where it's like I got to play a little bit of catch up on that. Um, but yeah, I've never minded doing the laundry. And we are finally getting to the banana bread. I ended up doctoring up this recipe slightly. Here I'm using my pan grease that I make for baked goods and cakes and anything. Anytime I know I'm going to be using a pan and I need to have like something that's going to be sticky or baked into it, I like to use my homemade pan grease to make sure that things come out of the pan easily rather than using a cooking spray. And the recipe only called for 3 ripe bananas, and I had 5. So this was a very banana-y banana bread. Just things that as you go, you can, see how that works for you. My butter wasn't completely softened, so I put it in the microwave for like 10-15 seconds just to help make it a little more pliable. But I always forget how easy of a recipe banana bread is to make. It doesn't require anything crazy outside of the bananas, but it's just such a simple recipe. Any version of it that you find that you like, a very basic one, just takes a few staple ingredients in anyone's home that is cooking, where you like to cook, you like to bake. These are all pretty standard things. Now, I did also, besides adding the extra bananas to the recipe, I also decided to add in a little bit of vanilla and cinnamon. I don't have a go-to banana bread recipe. We normally don't get to this point with the bananas where I have to make banana bread out of them. We usually eat them very quickly. So yeah, just wanted to, I know our flavor profiles and preferences, so I felt confident that I could switch up the recipe slightly. And these are things that, like, young adult me, newlywed me, I could never have thought that I'd be capable of making these decisions on the fly and have the results turn out well. But I had forgotten about the cookbook that I was using, as it was a gift from my mother-in-law many years ago. And when I was looking for the banana bread recipe, I saw a few other things that just looked really, really good. And so I might have to peruse that more this winter for some baked good recipes. Any organization has some really good recipe books. I'm usually trying to find those. I've really switched more to Pinterest to find recipes for myself, but I just really wanted a cookbook this time. So I like to bake in stages. So this recipe said to bake for an hour. So I do 30 minutes and then I'll check again. So our laundry room is in the basement and it doubles as storage. An investment I made earlier this year was in a couple of 3-gallon food storage buckets. We live about 20-30 minutes away from our closest city, and I just learned that I liked having more things on hand, especially in the winter when the weather can easily turn bad and we could be snowed in for a couple of days. It just really is a peace of mind for me to know that, like, I have staple ingredients like sugar, flour, beans, rice in bulk. So I don't have to worry if we can't get out for a few days, that I can easily make something here at home. So earlier I had used up all the flour in my bin and I needed to refill it from my bulk storage. I also realized that I needed to make more simple syrup this day for my at-home iced coffees and decided to go ahead and refill my sugar bin as well. So I'll get to that here in a little bit. Simple syrup was something that I did not see as simple until I actually started making it. And I think the reason for that, when I first wanted to start making this, was my children were so little. And part of simple syrup, or at least the recipe that I had found to use, was that it wanted you to be stirring constantly while it comes to boil, and then while it's boiling for 3 to 5 minutes. You need to be stirring it constantly. And I just, with babies and toddlers, that amount of time was hard for me to be able to do this consistently. And because usually by the time the evening rolls around, I'm on closing shift and I don't want to have to make anything extra. So it wasn't something I figured out and made a part of my, like, every week or two routine to make this until my kids were a little bit older. It's definitely easier for me to make it versus buying pre-made simply because I know I always have sugar and water. Those are two things that's all it takes to make a plain simple syrup, and I always know I have that on hand. So it's just easier rather than having to remember to purchase pre-made simple syrup. You can also always add in different things to like change the flavor of your simple syrup. But I just prefer the plain simple because I can just use it for more things like cocktails and iced coffees. And while I was, down in the basement checking over my bulk bins, I decided I would just like to add in some extra sugar. I'm starting to think and plan for Christmas baking. So it's like, how much flour do I have or am I going to need? How much sugars am I going to need? Where am I at? Where are my levels? I don't need a ton of it, but I definitely go through more the closer we get to the holidays, just with all the extra baking and winter treats that we like to have. It's easier to have the oven on in the winter because it's not so hot and it kind of helps heat the house versus in the heat and heart of summer. But I just realized the older I get, the more and more I want my kitchen to serve and function better for me and my family. My kids are getting to a point now where the older one is definitely becoming more and more interested in learning how to cook. So I just know as we go, we're going to have to switch things up and get ready for that. Now I love a coffee. I have multiple cups of coffee in the morning, at max two. Um, or if I'm out, I might get a coffee if I'm out and about. But every afternoon, I love to have an iced coffee. But like I said earlier, we live 20 to 30 minutes from our city, and I am not going to make that drive simply to have a coffee in the afternoon. So I've learned over the last few years how to make my own at-home iced coffee in the afternoons. So that includes simple syrup, and so I made that simple syrup earlier, knowing that I was finishing up this bottle of simple syrup. I like to add in some heavy cream. We just eyeball it. And we received this little wand frother as a gift a few years ago from one of my husband's friends, and I have loved using it to help just mix the simple syrup and the cream together. Got to rinse that off. And this is where now I'm going to add in my ice. And I like to make espresso at home, and I made a big pot earlier in the week. And I just leave it in the fridge so it's ready to go when I am ready for my afternoon treat. And I feel like this one was well deserved for getting through my to-do list before having to go pick up my kids from school for the weekend. Now, I didn't accomplish everything in the morning. So this is about early mid-afternoon before I have to go get my kids. But I felt like I had lost a lot of motivation over the last little while, and today was just a day where I was able to get the things done that needed to be done around the house. And it just made me feel really good. And I want to thank you for joining me, and I hope that you have a fantastic week.